Welcome back to another episode here on the Hart and Hustle podcast. Our next guest says, I realized the system worked for me because it was built for me. Is that correct, Caroline?
That is correct.
So I ask you, you had a front row seat to privilege. When did the blinders come off?
Yeah. So, front row seat to privilege for me, that looked like growing up with both parents in a white suburb in the Northeast, with everything that I needed: food, shelter, all those things. Um, when I was 3 years old, I was fortunate to move to London with my parents, where I was exposed to so many folks speaking different languages, so many folks in different types of housing. And I think at that point, it was just that's what it was. And then it was when we moved back to the United States, in Rhode Island, to another kind of leafy green white suburb in a big house, that I went, whoa, like, what do you mean? Not everybody lives in, small apartments like in London. And what do you mean that these are the resources that we have? And so that was, I think, first a change in my physical environment, that I realized, oh, and we're going to the public
Mhm.
school because it is a great public school in my town, but not everybody has that opportunity where they live. So that was one of the things that was a real visceral eye opener for me when I changed my geographic location.
I wish that more people had the ability to actually travel and see the world at that scale,
Yeah.
right? Because it takes me back to just recently, probably the last 3, 4 years. I worked for the airline industry, and I mean, where I grew up, pretty rough, right? They call it crime hills. Not a lot of people probably make it out of that community, and mostly black Hispanic neighborhood. That's kind of where I grew up in. And all we knew was our backyards. So for me, early on, I was able to see San Francisco. That was like, oh my God, there's something greater than that. But then what happened was recently I went to South Africa for 3 weeks. So when you talk about really living differently, right? Even living in Pine Hills was better than living in South Africa, where for 4 hours a day, they have no electricity. So when I'm teaching them, it's like 4 p.m. to 12 o'clock. I have to go to the restroom with the light of my flashlight on to go to the bathroom. But these people are still grateful. They're still telling each other to be quiet. They're just thankful that I'm there because they have an opportunity to work. That's how they look at it. Like, you're giving us an opportunity to just get out of our zone and what we've been doing here. And that made me realize, like, or even water, something as simple as water. Every day I drink a bottle of water. I mean, more than one bottle, but I would bring in this big bottle of water. And then I had a gentleman says, Ephraim, why do you always come in with a brand new bottle of water? And I'm like, what do you mean, bro? Don't you drink water? I see you drinking water every day too. He says, I have to fill up my water with tap water and put into the fridge to make it feel like we're drinking cold water. And it's like, when you see that, you realize, like, yeah, there is so much more to the world than what we actually have. And people don't get to see that. So I'm happy that you got to experience that, and that I got to experience that, because we bring these memories and we bring these conversations back to humanity here in America, and hope that people can stop living so ungrateful at times. Am I sitting here saying
Yeah.
anything wrong, Caroline?
No, I mean, I hear it. That's such a beautiful example, both of like the gratitude that you can have when
Yeah.
for small things and big things, but also what you shared just about the no electricity in the evenings. Like, that's a little bit of the system, right? Like, that's a
Mhm.
systemic choice, that community, that government decided to shut off the electricity,
Yep.
and that hits, it inconvenienced you going to the bathroom. But imagine folks who like needed to cook, needed to study,
Exactly.
read, like
Yeah.
the kind of talk
Charge
about
a
the
cell
system
phone.
not being built for you, right?
They
In
couldn't
a way
charge
you
a
don't
cell
have
phone.
life.
Just imagine, Caroline. How would we live without a
Yeah.
cell phone? Like,
No,
so
could
no,
not.
I
Could not.
not at all. During the last year, during the hurricane, because I'm in Florida, during the hurricane, I was out with internet for 4 days, and my life was like, oh my God, what do I supposed to be doing? Like,
Yeah.
I can't watch TV, streaming services, like. So no, I love it that you've seen that very early on, though, and I can only imagine that it was very frustrating early on as well. Is it because you were seeing great work go unnoticed? Is that what made you maybe frustrated early on?
So I would say after I moved back to that leafy green neighborhood,
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time trying to find get out of that neighborhood and see what the world was really like. And I think I got really frustrated when I started working at a Boys and Girls Club in downtown Providence. And I was working with kids who had just been at the full school day and they were coming to an after school program
Mhm.
and they were starving. They were really hungry. They were falling asleep. They were exhausted. And I was like, wait a minute, this should be fun. This should be like after school. This should be a place where you're coming, you're playing games. Like, I'm here to teach you to learn how to swim, all these cool things. And these poor kids are just like so exhausted by their day, the system, they're hungry. And I was like, this isn't fair. Like, why can't kids be kids, right? Like, what is
Mhm.
going on with the way that they're able to be supported and nourished that they can't, have fun in the pool or on the basketball court. And that's what made me really start to think about, like, wait a minute, like, what's going on in these schools anyway? Or like, where is all of our, taxpayer money going? And is it really making a difference in the
Yeah.
lives of those who need it most?
And as you mentioned, there's $1 trillion on the table, and it's possibly going to the wrong folks, right? So talk about it. Why is government still funding services over outcomes?
Yeah, so with that frustration, I started on a journey to explore,
Mhm.
like, well, where is all this money and what's it
Mhm.
going towards? And you're right, there's over $1 trillion at the state, local level, and really the goal of government is to spend our taxpayer dollars delivering services that are responsive and make a difference in our lives. Too often, though, what that actually looks like in terms of the incentives for governments is just you get your budget, did you spend your budget? And so
Mhm.
there's a real pressure to kind of get the dollars out the door and to do it in a way that is sort of legally sound. And so I realized that a lot of times when folks, when they're doing contracts for nonprofits at the government level, it's all very based on services or inputs, like how many, pencils are you going to spend for the tutoring program? How many books are you going to buy versus our kids going to learn
Mhm.
math and reading? And so I think that's really the difference. Is kind of a mindset that, okay, we've got to be compliant. The best way to spend taxpayer dollars is to be compliant and to make sure we know exactly what we spent the money on, versus a mindset that says the best way to spend taxpayer dollars is delivering responsive services that measurably improve people's lives. And we do a lot of the former in our state and local governments, great intent, but when the money goes out the door, it's for inputs or
Mhm. Mhm.
activities and not about like which programs are actually making a difference for folks. And so that's why I ended up starting Third Sector.
So you started this. You're helping nonprofits stop chasing crumbs and really start shaping the system. How are you doing it?
So we actually partner mostly at the government level. So with state and local governments who are one of the biggest funders of
Hmm.
nonprofit services and nonprofit providers. And we help them understand this difference. We help them understand, like, well, what would it look like if you stop caring so much about how many pencils and chairs and books and you start caring more about the improvements in math scores or the improvements in reading scores? Who would you need to talk to differently in order to make that a reality? Which nonprofits would you be in conversation with to set those outcome goals? And then how might you restructure your RFPs and your contracting so those nonprofits that are delivering measurable results can actually start to get a greater share of
Hmm.
the public funding that's out there? So we work mostly with government folks and with the service providers that are contracting a lot with government to really shift the relationship to focus on what is the North Star that you care about, the improvement in people's lives that you care about, and where are those nonprofits actually delivering that, so you can start to fund, reallocate some more resources towards those.
You mentioned RFP. Do you remember one that you had to rewrite that you're probably proud of that really changed lives?
Yeah, so one example that comes to mind for me is a program that we did in Oregon. Uh, it was called Sponsors Inc., and this was a contract that we helped write with the nonprofit. It was called
Hmm.
Sponsors, and the leading reentry county reentry agency, and we helped them to rewrite a contract that was based on outcomes for those who are returning from incarceration And the outcome was around increasing supportive housing for those returning from incarceration. And so that was like the outcome goal in the contract. Everyone was laser focused on it. The other goal was to reduce recidivism for this group, which is something the government also cares a lot about. And the results of that was so we helped rewrite that contract. We broke down the silos between the housing authority and the criminal legal system. And the result was that this great nonprofit sponsors was finally like freed up to do what they do best, which is to house people who are returning from incarceration and to keep them engaged and out of prison. And so the results of that project so far, 87% of the participants have been stably housed, which is great regarding, compared to the baseline, which is most folks would still be homeless or housing unstable. And then the program's reduced recidivism by over 60%, which is just like tremendous. And again,
Wow.
this is a nonprofit that was basically allowed the flexibility that's still accountable for that outcome goal, right? But allowed the flexibility to do what it takes for those folks in order to make a measurable difference. So I would say that is a
That's
successful
a good one.
contract.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're proud of
Hey,
that one.
hey, real quick, if you enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, whether that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. How long have you been doing this? You said you started this. How many years has it been now?
Gosh, it's been about 14 years since we've started. Yeah.
Really? How big have you been able to grow this from nothing to 14 years later?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit ourselves, and it started with me and my co-founder, and we are now 55 folks across the country. So we're fully remote in 20 states.
How cool is that when it was just a vision, just not even just yeah, an experience really, right? What your mom taking you from one place, or your parents taking you from one place to other, that experience allows us to kind of live a life that we've never expected. That's what I love about life so much, is the experiences that we have really shape us. And recently I was having a conversation now. I was asking, is a leader born, or or does life experiences create that leader? And I really think that maybe you had life experiences that really shaped the leader you are today. Like, to think where you were, an idea, a vision, and you put foot on the ground and never look back 14 years later. But I can imagine there were some challenges, right, Caroline? I don't want people to sit here and look at it like, oh my God, 14 years, she's a success. That's not true. Challenges. You've experienced any? You remember those that you can go back to?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I think one of the biggest challenges I faced was even before I started the organization.
Mhm.
Again, this is me being a well-intentioned, privileged person trying to help. Um, I went to college and I thought I was going to go help folks in South Africa, right? Folks in the developing world. I ended up in Brazil, in Northeast Brazil myself. And one of the biggest challenges I have, I would say like a loving challenge, was I was all excited to apply what I had learned in the classroom, and I had all these good intentions. And the wonderful folks in the community that I was in said, girl, why don't you just sit down? We love your energy. You can't speak Portuguese. They speak Portuguese in Brazil. Like, you can't
Yeah.
speak Portuguese very well at all. We love that you're here. How about you sit down and listen? Because we've got some ideas of how we think we can best improve our community. And that challenge and that lesson
Wow.
was just instrumental for me in terms of how I approach everything we do
Mhm.
at Third Sector. Is that, I, again, have been like gifted power, privilege because of my identity and the resources my family had. But for those who our government is trying to help the most, those who have less opportunity, you know what? Those people have a pretty good idea of what it's going to take in order for them to improve their lives. And so one of the best things that we do at Third Sector, we encourage our governments to do at Third Sector, is to listen and to really co-define and co-develop what those outcomes, what those responsive services are going to be to actually like help people thrive and improve their lives. So that was one challenge for sure, um, along the way.
No, I what I really appreciate is that you continue to mention I had the privileged life, but that doesn't mean you had to go do the work that you're doing. So that's actually kudos to you, right? Because I believe we all have a path in our lives. Those that have had to overcome adversity, like myself, I chose the path to not repeat cycles, but how do we continue to educate, provide resources to others to know that if it's sexual abuse, if it's adoptions, but like all these nonprofits that you work with, they have a mission, and usually it's how do we impact youth, how do we impact our communities, how do so to know that yes, you are privileged, but you're utilizing this for the better. I love this. I truly, truly do. And I can imagine that in a space right now where we're seeing nonprofits almost living in fear because they don't have the ability, the resources, the knowledge, right? The privilege of whatever that you, if you want to call it that. What are some of the things that you're seeing them navigate, some of these strategic ways they're navigating through this climate change?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say, like, it is really tough times out there. It's unprecedented times.
Mhm.
That word feels overused right now in the system. So, and to be in the nonprofit space. And so, just want to acknowledge that it is really hard. And for those nonprofits who are out there and kind of wondering where to turn, there's so much uncertainty. I think fear is a good word for it. Uncertainty, definitely. Um, one of the things we're seeing some of our strongest nonprofit leaders do is to really take a step back and try to start by understanding, for whether you care about youth development, economic mobility, homelessness, start by really doing a little bit of that landscape mapping and trying to
Mhm.
understand for your community and for the group, the people that you care about improving their lives, who sets the priorities and who manages the money in your issue area. And truly, it is not like, oh, it's all the federal government for everything. No, truly, like, depending for homelessness, it could be at the city, at the housing authority, or at the county level. Other times, it could be a state agency or a department that has a specific mandate. So,
Mhm.
doing a little bit of, we've got our savviest folks are doing some mapping around like, wait, who's incentivized to care about the people we care about? Where's the money? Follow the money a little bit.
Yep.
And then once you identify who those leaders are, and spoiler alert, like it's not the mayor. It's not the mayor. Like everybody wants to go talk to the mayor, but it's like it's the deputy, it's somebody who's running, it's somebody whose name you probably haven't heard of that isn't on the front page of the news, who's actually controlling hundreds of millions of dollars in resources for the causes that you care about. And
Yep.
so figure out who those leaders are, reach out with a clear message, talk about the outcomes that you're trying to achieve and how your work aligns with the problems that those individuals are trying to solve. And really, the goal, again, our most savvy nonprofit partners, they're trying to become a thought partner with
Mhm.
those who control the resources in the public sector and not just a grantee. So if you come and you're like, hey, we got, return on investment of 10 to 1, you should give us all your money, like, government folks get 10 of those conversations a day. But if you come saying like, hey, we're going to see reductions, across the board in our funding. How can we think about organizing our community and our resources together to make sure we deliver responsive services for the homeless population? That's like you're a thought partner. You're not just asking to be a grantee.
You're dropping gems right there, Caroline. Yeah, that's gems. You got to be a thought partner because everybody's asking for money, right? We're in the asking businesses nonprofit. So I love that you kind of brought that. You got to be a little
Uh,
bit smarter than that, all right? Don't just out here be asking, building relationships.
yes.
I actually spoke to a leader that mentioned he took over an organization, started, they were making 70 million or 80 million dollars a year. Now they're making 400 million dollars a year. And he says, and some of the gems that he dropped was, as you mentioned, I was building relationships. I was going to chamber meetings. I was, investing. Like, yeah, it does cost to be part of a chamber, but let's be honest, what is the ROI when you're seeing all these different leaders that you're mentioning at all these different events? Building your board with other leaders as well, not just people filling up a seat, not just, for me instance, I'm the president of my old high school's foundation, right? And I love it. There's great moms on the board, and there's those, excited people. But we need leaders that are truly, as you mentioned, are making differences in their specific places that also bring value. So let's talk to the accountant. Let's talk to the marketing director, knowing that that's what we need. Why are we not partnering up strategically in that space? Instead, we're just kind of getting anybody and everybody. I think that's also a strategic play, is making sure your board has value, because that's what's going to support you to kind of scale up. And now I think AI is just as great. I wish I would have started earlier, to be quite frank. My friend told me about AI 3 years ago. I surpassed him when it comes to AI, and he's like, "I should have. What happened?" But I'm a big believer that automation, doing the things more of what we love, which is showing up on the front lines, and how do we automate all the things on the back end? Do you also feel that organizations should be implementing AI? What is your thoughts on AI?
Uh, AI, the conversation is everywhere.
I can only
And
imagine.
I would say, there are innovations there that are developing faster than any of us can kind of get our arms around. I'll say that for third sector, we're in the early stages of figuring out what AI means for our work
Hmm.
internally. But I largely really agree with your comment that, like, focus on what is it that you uniquely as an organization, as a nonprofit, can bring to measurable improvements in people's lives. And you should be trying to figure out, how do you spend all of your time on that, right? And whether it's automation or it's in partnership with folks who do other things better than you do, like whether that's AI or other enabled, I think just having that clarity around, like, wait a minute, what is it that we want to achieve? What is it that we're really good at in terms of contributing to make that happen? Then think about, who do we hold hands with? What do we,
Hmm.
like, automate in order to enable more of that great contribution work to happen? I think those are the right questions to be asking right now. And honestly, that we have to be asking in a world where there's going to be less resources and not more in the coming years.
But do you feel that when you're having these conversations with other leaders, that there is, or are you getting that pushback as well when you say AI or you bring that up? I don't know if it's a conversation from you to another leader, but I feel as a leader to another leader, when I say AI, there's still the people that it's just, there's no way. Matter of fact, I spoke to someone recently and she was like, "There's no way. Everyone tells me about ChatGPT. I'm not doing it." And for me, I'm all about education. So I pulled
Yeah.
up ChatGPT. I prompted her a couple of different things of the conversation we were having, and within 2 3 minutes she has ChatGPT on her computer. She signed in and she's sharing her screen like, "Show me that again." And then on
Yeah.
Sunday she says, "Thank you so much. I think I'm overusing ChatGPT, but the value you gave me is so helpful." And I just feel like you have to test it. You have to see how. Yes, I get it. You're a great writer. You want to be personal, but you can still do that just faster. That's it.
Yeah, I would say, my line for AI is active curiosity is essential, because it is everywhere and it's going to be everywhere. And so what you just described was like, embrace an active curiosity about it.
Yeah.
But you should be doing that kind of across the board, because we're in a time where we need, a lot more radical curiosity, collaboration, again, to navigate the uncertainty that's out there. So I am. I kind of, to get back to your point about fear, I try to take the embrace the uncertainty aspect and, okay, like, well, what do you do when things are uncertain times, right? You got to really think about, get curious around, what are the things that are going to help you achieve stability in this moment. And you've got to think about who you're holding hands with, who are you going to partner up with in order to survive and continue thriving in uncertain times. Who can you trust? And who do you want to be in relationship with that cares about achieving the same goals that you do?
I love it. And actually, this last AI question before we move forward is, if you could create an AI tool of your own, what does it look like? What is it solving?
Gosh. One of the things that I think would be really helpful that I've actually seen some partners doing is, so AI takes advantage of a lot of different data sets, and there's a lot of information out there about grants, right? And what funders
Okay.
care about, what philanthropies care about. And gosh, I mean, we're a nonprofit too. We spend a lot of time researching, trying to figure out, how do you write that best intro
Mhm.
note or that best cover letter. And I think there's some new advantages to leveling the playing field, really, around accessing information about which foundations would be good ones to reach out to for your nonprofit and others. And so that, I think, is a really valuable tool that I've actually seen, wouldn't need to create, that could really
Okay.
save folks a lot of time, so you could focus
Yeah.
on, measurably improving people's lives and doing those responsive services, as opposed to, like, which nonprofit, which foundation should we reach out to?
Yeah. And you mentioned grant writing. If people are not using AI to do grant writing, like you're falling behind again. Like it's out there. People are doing it. I'm hearing these things from other leaders. But this is good. Can we talk about what, because you're a nonprofit, and it's crazy to think that you're a nonprofit helping other nonprofits because you had some of these challenges yourself. It's almost like now you're kind of coaching other nonprofits. Like you're now the coach in the nonprofit space and you're helping others. But can we talk about more of what the third sector group is doing as well, so that people that are here listening, like, what is she talking about? What can she help me with? So we can start to kind of drop those services.
Yeah, so I can give another example of the work that we do. So, again, government funds a lot of different human services, and we partner with state and locals to help them be in better relationship, both funding and outcomes focused relationship with other folks, with their nonprofit providers. So one example of where we came in, and I think we were helpful, or at least the results show that we were helpful. We were working with 6 rural counties in Texas who were struggling with how do we create good jobs at home and not require people to move to the big city in order to access opportunity. We're losing
Mm-hmm.
population. Like, how do we help people access good jobs at home? So we supported the workforce boards in those 6 counties to define, well, what does a good job look like? What is a good wage that provides benefits and opportunities for career advancement in your area? And then how would we think about, okay, defining that and doing a map of what are the actual like remote work opportunities for folks where they wouldn't have to move and they could still achieve these good jobs. So what the result was, sort of at the systems level, we were able to identify a couple of areas like IT, truck driving, healthcare, where there were some good job opportunities in those rural communities. And then we were able to help recruit in new training providers. So that included Texas Tech University, the American Truck Driving School, other nonprofit training providers that had not previously served this area and were now established in the region. So it was helpful not only to help us train and place 400 job seekers in quality jobs with career
Mm-hmm.
advancement opportunities, but it also like shifted the ecosystem, the nonprofit ecosystem in that rural community. And it gave those nonprofits, honestly, like funding. They knew that they could get paid to train people and place job seekers. And it gave those job seekers in those rural counties more options, right, for ways that they could increase their own wages and thrive. So that's another example of what we do. And I think as part of that, we really ended up being kind of the nonprofit in the middle, if you will, that was trying to help our governments actually be in better conversation with the nonprofit
Yeah.
providers around what they needed, how much money they needed to do the work, like what the outcome goals were. Because sometimes government says, oh, we can't talk to them. They're our vendors. No,
Mm-hmm.
they are your service delivery. They're like an extension of the service delivery to make sure you're delivering responsive services. And so that's a lot of times what we're doing is helping to be that bridge between nonprofits and their government partners.
What a good space to be in. I mean, really getting the cup filled, probably on both sides, to be quite frank. And it's nothing like chasing purpose and not a paycheck. Because let's be honest, with the work that you do, you could really be doing so much more. But there's a purpose there. There's a passion that you have always had. So you'll continue to scale this at this level of helping other nonprofit get to high levels as well. So we appreciate what you do. But let's talk to those leaders. I feel like the leaders are listening and they want to know, okay, so what's the first relationship I should be making this year as a leader? So if you can kind of talk to that, what should be that first relationship every nonprofit leader should build this year?
Yeah, I would say again, go back to that, do that landscaping assessment. You know, the relationship you should invest in is with the person who is making funding decisions about the area that you care
Mhm.
about. So maybe it's the like homeless services manager, maybe it's the youth development coordinator, it's whoever is controlling the budget from the relevant government entity. So I would say again, like seek to become a true partner with folks that where you share the public goals of those in government, because folks in government also care about positive impact as well in people's lives. Um, And
Caroline,
yeah.
real quick, I'm a big let's dumb it down because sometimes you can give them just this basics and they still don't know where to start. So where do they start? Is it an email? Is it I'm going to an event? Is it I'm knocking on some
Yeah.
doors? Let's make it
Ooh.
even easier for them.
I'm a big fan. I say this as running a remote organization. I'm a big fan of find out who it is that you want to be in relationship with and figure out a way to be with them in person. Yeah. And so whether that is at an event that they're hosting or at a conference or getting an in-person meeting, um, that's the way to make it happen.
I agree. The energy is very different in person. I'm pretty sure even this conversation, like we're having a great conversation, but what would it look like in person? I think it would be a vibe for sure. No, so I love that. I just feel that I want to give them so much insight, but also dumb it down because so many people, as we mentioned,
Yeah.
you can give them the playbook, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And to me, is always how do we make it make sense? That's just I'm a big believer in that, and it looks like you guys do that over there as well. So I just wanted to make sure for the readers that are still here or the listeners that are still here that they can we made it make sense for them, right? Like go see these people in person, figure out who that is, reach out via LinkedIn, reach out email to get more information on them. I mean, you could probably know a lot by just stalking their LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're probably posting on where they're going to be and maybe other events that they're going to be at, and that's it. That's your in.
And
Sometimes you got to do a little stalking.
and so much of it too is like if that doesn't work, think about, well, how could you make them pay attention to you? And in some cases, if you can't get in touch with those that control the budget, reaching out to other nonprofits in your area that also care about the work you do and approaching
Mhm.
as a collective versus as a single nonprofit can also be really helpful because it's like, oh wait, it's not just one constituent, it's like 10 that are coming and asking for a meeting, asking for a conversation about how we're going to support homeless youth in our community in the face of all this uncertainty. And like, okay, I'll show up to that if it's going to be 10 of those. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's really funny that you say what you're saying right now because as I sit here and think about, we're putting together a gala. I took over this organization, as I mentioned, about a year ago, and they've only been doing about ten to $15,000 over the last 5 years, right, per year. And this is an organization that's been around for 30 years, but has about $500,000 in endowment. So obviously the potential was there. It's what happened. Leadership failed somewhere. Like something happened there, and they could blame it on a pandemic, but pandemic was 5 years ago. Stop blaming it on a damn pandemic already. What are you doing today? So as I taken over this organization, I said, okay, we celebrating 30 years this year. What a perfect time to kind of relaunch, rebrand. Let's have a gala. People like to get dressed up, have drinks, and donate some money. But I wasn't thinking about just like because it's a school. I'm not just thinking about inviting those alumni, but as you mentioned, those community partners.
Yeah.
Like figure out that there's kids graduate from Edgewater because some of these people have a relationship there. So now there's a relationship you can talk about. So I'm looking for those. I did go to the mayor because his son is an alumni to Edgewater, so
Yeah.
easy to get there. Let's talk to the people at the school district, because I have connection with the schools. You've been here, as a school secretary, been at 36 years. You must know everybody. So you are my go-to. Who are we going to bring? Because it's partnership, is allowing people to see what the mission and the vision is. Once they believe it, people will jump on board. They will be more than willing to help out, whether that's putting you in front of other people. And I think that's important. It's in it building relationship. Maybe that's not your donor, maybe that's not the person who's going to help you, but maybe they can bring you to the table to the person that could and give you that $1 million check. I would never forget that someone told me, Ephraim, I wanted to be a realtor just because I knew they were making a lot of money when I was young, but I was also already in the nonprofit space, and he says, Ephraim, do not do real estate. It's a career and there's no in and out of this. Stick in the nonprofit. There's a lot of money to be made. People are writing $1 million checks. You just have to ask and really be in the right rooms. Everything that we said today, Caroline. Anything else you want to add to those before we go into that blind question for people to just kind of think outside the box?
Ah, I love that idea of being in relationship, partnership, and someone said to me once, the best way to get resources is to actually to ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for resources. But if you want the resources, asking for advice can help you to get to
Let's go.
navigate, just as you described, those relationships that end in the check. And the other thing I'd add is other advice that I got, which is really helpful for me as a nonprofit, is if you ultimately, you ultimately need grant money to survive, right? Like you need funding to survive, but start with the relationship, then start with the project, then the check will come. If you start with the check, that's not as successful as if you start with relationship, the project, and then the actual funding.
I'm gonna look for something real quick. One moment. So the whole time I'm talking to you, I'm getting these vibes. You're bringing back memories here. Hold on. I told you I used to. It's stuck in the wires, but I told you I used to sit here and work for the airline industry. So I'm
Oh my
sitting here the whole
gosh.
time, and I'm like, "Hello," like
Hello.
you're just bringing back
I
memories.
know.
Okay. No, I love it.
Uh,
Really bring back days. I used to work for the airline industry, customer service, and it was some good days, some bad days, but you learn just so much for being at home. So I love this remote. I love that you've been remote. I love your vibe. I love that you authentically have been you this whole time, and that you are realize it's not about you. It's not about us per se. It's about how do we help the future, and I can see that in you because from a young little girl, it was always about the future. It's about other people. Is how do we get people to see past their backyards, past of what they've been told or what they've been seen or shown in this case. So thank you so much, Caroline, for all the conversation. But are you ready for the blind question?
oh, yes, bring it on.
All right, here we go. Blind question time. If you could erase one part of how government funds nonprofits, what would you replace it with?
Erase or replace? Sorry.
So if you could erase one part of how
Okay.
government funds nonprofits, what would you replace it with? So you're going to erase one, but you're going to replace it with something.
All right. I would erase cost reimbursement funding where you have to keep track of every penny and then you get paid after you do the thing because who has the money to front all of the money to like keep track of all the things. And I would replace it with outcomes focused funding, so where it's really clear what you want to achieve, what those metrics are, but that you get flexibility and, dare I say, at least half the money up front in order to achieve those goals. So that's what I would change
Okay,
about
that was easy.
government.
That was easy. That was too easy. All right, what is your blind question for the next leader here on the Heart and Hustle?
Oh, I got one. What would you do with $100 million? That's my blind question.
I love it. $100 million, and that's for just a nonprofit, right?
Yeah,
From the nonprofits.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
What would you
Not a
do?
personal. Somebody would say house and car. We're
No,
talking
no,
about
no,
from a
no. For a
nonprofit. Okay,
nonprofit,
okay.
if your organization got $100 million, what would you do?
That is a hell of a question. I can't wait to see what the next people say on this one. But Caroline, you have been amazing. Where can we find you? Social media? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
What's the website?
LinkedIn at Caroline Whistler, and then our website is Third Sector, www.thirdsector, THIRD, sector, CAP.org. So that's us.
Let's go. Well, I appreciate it. You guys better follow Caroline. All right. If you guys want that nonprofit coach as well, to me, you're a nonprofit coach. I feel like I couldn't ask you anything. And you probably have the answers.
You got a
'Cause,
lot of
yes.
good answers too.
No, no, no. Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for all your insight and your support, and just for your time, as well. Thank you so much. If you guys, I do this because we as leaders sometimes have imposter syndrome, and then we watch somebody like Caroline and realize we're all in this together, right? Some days are better than others. We're in a if we can overcome the pandemic, I'm pretty sure we can overcome the next 4 years of what's happening here in our government. But
We can. We
it's just
can.
for anyone listening, we can. We
Oh
definitely
man.
can.
And as my colleague said, like it's showtime, y'all. Like we can not only overcome, but it's showtime. We got to bring it. Show
Was
the
that Erica?
value. It was not Erica, but our colleague
Oh, okay.
Keisha says it's showtime, right? It's showtime. We've got to make it, we've got to show the value of the nonprofit sector and the value of our government over the next few years. We can do it.
Yes, we can. All right, guys, we're about to head out here. Thank you so much for watching here on another episode on the Heart and Hustle podcast. My name is Ephraim. This is Caroline. We'll catch you on the next episode. Laters.
Bye.